Hi everybody, it's Mary, ready to bring you another great lineup of exercises today. So let's get started. We're going to march.
Hand, all good. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good, and my gang in the back, and there's still some more coming in, but this is great. I thank you for coming in and joining us, myself and our speaker here up front, who is Tim Sidebothom. Am I saying that right? Botham. So I'm saying it wrong. Sidebothom. Thank you. And he's come with his wife, Rachel, who's sitting over here. And your daughter is Karis. Karis's daughter has come along as well. And they're going to be talking actually somewhat as a group at times, sharing life experiences when things change. And how do we handle that moving forward? So I'd like to introduce Tim. He's going to talk to you just directly. He can move around. He just is sharing life experiences. And I know a lot of things will be important to all of us because we all face these things in life.
Thanks, Mary Lee. Folks, good afternoon. I know that you are fresh off lunch. You are anticipating what is for dinner. It is too warm outside to stay there, so you came into the air conditioning. I will try heartily not to put you to sleep. But if I do, I enjoy your nap. Because I know this is important to some folks over here, I am currently riding a Pride Go-Go 3-wheel. I don't recommend it. It is tiny. Normal-sized people should not be in this kind of scooter. It's a rental. Have you ever driven a rental before? People usually smoke in rentals and they're dirty. Nobody smoked in this as far as I can tell, but it's not my best choice. It's just what happens when stuff breaks. The change that occurred in my life, besides getting old, is that in 2008, so travel back in time with me for 16 years, I had a stroke, a wham-blam stroke that was on my left hand, no, it was a right-hand sided stroke affected on my left side, so my left side was paralyzed. I am no longer paralyzed, but it's not as good as it used to be. So Mary Lee, and Dr. Phillips asked that I come speak with you because it may have happened in your own life, it may happen to somebody you know, and perhaps through my experience, which is just that. It is my experience, our experience. It's the experience of a lot of folks. It may not be yours or your friend's experience, but you may have something you can take away from it that would help you understand better what they're going through or what your family's going through. It was a Thursday morning in the fall. Life was going along as normal. I was rushing around because I worked 2 jobs at Lancaster First Presbyterian Church. I was their organist and choir director, so I was down there doing my usual running around before I ran back to my teaching assignment at Lancaster Bible College. I probably grabbed a donut in the middle of that as my lunch breakfast. And I know that's brunch, but whatever. It was not healthy. I was not a healthy person. I was overweight. I had high blood pressure, undiagnosed. Okay, do you understand that this is how we work it? So I'm afraid to go to doctors. Well, not anymore. But I just know that every time I went to the doctor for something, my blood pressure was high, but it was not diagnosed. Okay, so I'm living in denial. It's a beautiful place to live. That morning, I ended up in my classroom with my 2 colleagues teaching. Thank goodness for my 2 colleagues I'm teaching. And I realized that I'm feeling something weird in my scalp. And not the normal dandruff or anything like that. This was something that started at the back of my neck and felt like it was running up over top of my head. Just like water or something. I'm like, well, this is weird. It's one of those things, you could put it off and just ignore it until it happened again. And I said, you know what? I think this is something I should pay attention to. I told my colleague, hey, I think I might be having a stroke. That did not come from me. I have no idea where that came from. I've done due diligence, just like you folks. I've read all the things of how to know if you're having a heart attack, how to know if you're having a stroke, how to know if you fell on the ground and just don't remember it. But reading something is different than knowing something. Now I know. Whatever, it was a bleed, most likely caused because of the high blood pressure, but we're not sure. It's undiagnosed. I said, I'm going to go get a drink of water. Here's something not to do when you're going to have a stroke. I'm just giving you a heads up. Don't walk down a stone staircase 2 stories high. I mean, God preserved me. All right, I got down to the bottom. I was doing fine until I reached the spot where they had rolled a table in front of the door, and I wiped out. I have no idea. I couldn't see what was going on. That's one of the effects it's having on my left side, and I also couldn't. My field of vision was weird. Like you could only see certain areas. Then the paramedics came. I was blessed to have a colleague who accidentally burned toast in the dining hall. So the fire truck with paramedic was already on their way. I have no idea. Why would you bring a paramedic to burnt toast? They may not have known what it was. It was just on fire. That's all they knew. And our students sometimes look like burnt toast. No. Folks, I couldn't have predicted that. So I got pretty quick care. He diagnosed it pretty quickly because I couldn't squeeze with my left hand like I could with my right hand. That's a big giveaway. Off to Lancaster General Hospital, and there they took care of me. I do not remember any of this. I was out. Either they put me out or I was out. It doesn't matter. Either way, I wasn't remembering anything. I woke up probably weeks later, days later. Okay. It's weird because at some point I woke up. They moved me to rehab, Lancaster Rehab, which was in its infancy at that point, because this is 16 years ago. They learned a lot from me. Originally, they experimented on me. Originally, only old people had strokes. Now, please let me qualify that. That's people in their 80s or 90s. Okay? People that are almost old. How's that? Does that sound better? Folks, I am fully aware that what used to be considered 80 or 90 and what you could or couldn't do has gone out the window in 2024. I have watched nonagenarians hustle better than 20-somethings because they know what they're doing and they know how to get there and they do it. So please feel no shame or shade from me because of what is perceived as an age. Age is not real. You're real. You know what's inside your heart and your mind. But they were still operating on an old way of thinking. They had me remaking Mary Jane's closet repeatedly. I'm like, guys, this is not helping me. I was 42. I'm not 42 anymore. But yeah, so they were operating under old standards, which even now, whatever. I guess there might still be people doing that. But they changed their habits a little bit. I developed pneumonia because if you're going to get sick, why don't you get way sick? That sent me back to the hospital. They got me out of pneumonia.
Before that, you were a nurse.
And then they put me in a nursing home.
No, before pneumonia. Oh, no, you're right. Keep going.
Rachel has her own perspective of this story.
Keep going.
We were not married until well after the stroke, just to give you a perspective. We had dated, we were friends, off and on. We were friends all the time, but dated off and on. That is part of the story. That is God moving in an amazing way. Why a beautiful woman would marry me post-stroke is still makes me marvel. But God. So I'm back and forth between rehab and the hospital, and I eventually went to a nursing home. It was lovely. There were 6 ladies and me sitting around the table. We'd all have our hot chocolate at lunchtime, and they, I was an anomaly. Let's put it that way, and they had a lot of fun at my expense. So all that rehab happens, and nothing is working inside my body. And you know as well as I do that insurance is in a hurry to see you get better and for them to stop paying. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. We all do our part. They get wealthy, and I hopefully get better. I was not getting better fast enough for them, and so they ended up sending me to the nursing home, like I just mentioned, and they did this great stuff where they didn't take care of me because it was kind of around the bend. Everybody's like, "Oh, just roll them into a corner," and I got sick, which sent me back to the hospital. Now, some of you are like, "Wait, that sounds like moving backwards or at least downhill." It re-qualified me. Do you know that term? It made me available again for better therapy. And this time, they sent me to a leader in the field. I still don't know how this happened because I didn't know it was a leader. Bryn Mawr Rehab down in Malvern, PA, is one of the best in the world, and it's close to home here, so to speak. And they were a whole different story. They were used to 42-year-olds coming in with problems. And they did their work, and God changed my life. Now, you're like, you're still sitting in a scooter. I don't believe. Yeah, I'm still sitting in a scooter because I am not going to waste my energy walking from the parking lot into here. Otherwise, I'd be sitting here sleeping, and you'd be like, why the heck did we come hear him? You understand? I want to use my energy for more important things like communicating to you, remembering to hold the microphone up to my mouth and stuff like that. Well, it really comes down to all these things, whether it was a stroke or pneumonia or rehab or falling, because you'll do that repeatedly. It's what God teaches me. And I realized that for a guy who said he believed in Jesus as a child, I had become a hardened, self-sufficient guy. And that's the surest way you're going to fall if you think you've got it all under control. Sorry. At some points, my voice will fog up because it's emotional. I'm sorry. I gather that a lot of stroke folks have difficulty dealing with emotion as well. Will cry on a regular basis for no good reason. I was told by a psychiatrist at that point to picture a stop sign and consider, is it worth crying over this? Because crying takes energy, Just go find your favorite movie you like to cry at and see if you don't feel tired afterwards. Oh, here comes the commentary.
Can I jump in? Because people don't know who you are, I think the power of the stroke and the change in your life and your day-to-day life, not just going to hospital. But so Tim, I'm going to brag on him. Before the stroke, Tim was one of the most prestigious organists and pianists in the Lancaster and central Pennsylvania region. So he was the organist at First Presbyterian Church in Lancaster, which, if you've ever been there, is one of the most beautiful organs in the area. He did recitals. I'm bragging on you, yeah. He did recitals and played all over the place. He did the organ dedication recital at Lancaster Bible College, and the encore was when the roll is called up yonder, all with his feet. No hands, just the pedals. Okay? So, plus all of the great works. One of my favorites that he used to play is Vidor's Toccata, or some of the other great organ pieces. So, when this stroke came and changed his life, it wasn't just that he was working an office job and then he couldn't work his office job anymore. God took what was his life, his job, but more his joy. Yeah, like what was one of the number one things in his life, his music, his ability to play, and in an instant took that away. So when we talk about change, I want them to understand just how big of a change this was for you. I'll sit down now.
It's true. If you're not wearing your organ shoes, people may not know you're an organist. Or if you're not playing something with your feet or whatever. And indeed, it was my joy. And that's been a process of working that through, of losing something that you thought was your God-given gift to help lead people in worship to go away. And yeah, I'm sure you know people that bargain with God. Oh, give me this and I'll do that or whatever. I would dare say the bargaining happened and quickly was squelched, knowing that I'm nothing but his creation. And therefore, there's no bargaining on my part. Pardon me. I got to say, some of the throat clearing is just because things like coffee, which is awesome and obviously a gift of God, it makes me froggy sometimes. Did that ever happen to you guys? I don't think it's our brand, although our brand is the least expensive, best tasting 8 o'clock coffee. I recommend it highly. Giant has it on sale regularly. There you go. The end of the ad. So, folks, how God continues to move. As I told you, Rachel and I dated off and on. And during this time, she started counseling with an awesome counselor. And that counselor directed her to think about how our relationship was going, because I was always more focused on something besides her. And yet she was devoted to trying to be my friend, my girlfriend. This is before stroke, but it continued after stroke. And her counselor urged her to do 2 things. One, when she thought of me, pray for me. And she prayed that I'd have an abundant life. And when the stroke happened, she couldn't imagine that was an abundant life. I'm here to tell you. Stupid tears. My life is far more abundant today than before I was in a wheelchair, because God started changing stuff in my life. Stuff like caring for her, realizing my busyness was not next to godliness. It was simply getting in the way. It's hard to be too busy when you're sitting down all day. I know you can be busy anytime. You can be busy in any way. But when it gets in the way of your relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ, it's too much. It needs to go. Whether you let go of it or whether he moves it out of your life. In my case, he moved it. He sat me down. Rachel had also made a list of things that would need to change before we could date again, before there would be a relationship. It was completely unknown to me, which is great. A whole lot of stuff unknown to me. God changed every single one of those things. And when you don't know about it, it can't certainly be you anymore. It's got to be his hand working. And so we dated, and I'm cautious, blah, blah, blah. So we dated. I didn't want to go any further with the relationship until I could be more independent. So I got to move back to my house. Split levels are awesome. There's only 5 or 7 steps to go, no matter what way you go up and down. And so it's way better than the 2-story home I had looked at. Wow. Talk about advanced planning. We got married in 2013, 3 years after I started back teaching at the college. And then we had our little girl in 2017. What a look. Holy mackerel. Yes, she's a redhead. Yes, her hair used to be way longer. She had it cut off for locks of love. Some little girl is going to have an amazing wig made out of red hair. But wigs for kids, excuse me. Daddy doesn't keep track of stuff. Being in a wheelchair has given me amazing opportunities. Let me just tell you about one of them, and that is Kyle Christ. Kyle had cerebral palsy and was bound to a wheelchair and married an able-bodied woman who he went to school with at LBC. We were able to have tons of conversations about what that would look like for him. What a disability looks like, what marrying an able-bodied woman looks like, what ministry looks like from a wheelchair. But we did it, interestingly, we did it eye to eye, because we're both seated in wheelchairs. I wasn't standing up in front of him looking down on him saying, do this, do that. If you run into folks in a wheelchair, I recommend back away from them a couple of steps so they can see you. Most people in wheelchairs, although they love you, don't want to look at your belly button for most of the time. It's not your best spot. Also, we're a little bit wacky. While I don't care for this chair, even though it is a very pretty red, I recommend that you treat it like it's part of my body. You would no sooner put your hand on my head than you should on my wheelchair. It's just one of those things. It feels like you're invading my space, my bubble. Yeah, definitely the part about backing up, giving us some space. Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. We'd love to talk to you for a while. We're seated anyway, so you might as well be comfortable. Those kind of things have been amazing to me because, honestly, I was that guy. Like I said, was too busy to notice this. I would have gone charging by. I would have nodded to the disabled person, good morning, and feel very sanctimonious about it. Oh, I said good morning to a disabled person. Lovely. But now, I get to live in your shoes a tiny bit. Is it exactly your shoes? No. I still forget that I'm disabled. I call it playing the disabled card. It works for me when I can get closer to the door, or better seating on a plane, or you name it. It's not fair. I really shouldn't be called disabled anymore, I guess. But that's where we are. I'm still in physical therapy. It's like an annual thing. I know the therapist by name. I change therapy groups. Now, my current therapy is because while the left side has been learning how to be strong again, my right side has been helping out every way it can, and I developed osteoarthritis in my right knee. Y'all, I gotta tell you, it doesn't rain, but it pours. So currently I'm working to rehab that. I'll get my knee completely replaced in November. I've told the doctor he may call me Tom, as in Tom Turkey, for the days before, because it's right before Thanksgiving. When else would you want somebody to practice with a knife on you? But yeah, so, but here's God's provided. The left side has gained lots of strength. Is it 100% yet? No, never will be. But it's stronger than it has been, and gives me the chance to stand up better and things like that. If I doubt it for a second, my therapist, who is married to me, gives me verbal cueing all the time. if we park too far away from something, she'll say, "It's therapy." I wish she had never learned the word. It's good for you. Oh, great. Indeed. Well, I think I've given you the majority of what I know about strokes and marriage. I'm sure many of you could tell me way more than I know about marriage.
Oh, do you want to talk about how your music has continued?
Oh, sure.
Since God took your ability to play, well, not completely, but mostly. But what did he allow you to continue to do? And
so there's only so many ways you can do therapy. Like I do physical therapy. That's where you go in and you rehab your legs and all that kind of stuff. Occupational therapy is where they rehab your arms. And there's only so many ways you can do that. One is playing tiddlywinks. I'm sorry. I have no desire to play tiddlywinks. As fun as that certainly is. You can type. Oh, okay, there we are. You can type. I'm sorry, I thought I heard the light go off. You can type, which, that's great, but I don't know. I can do just as fine with my one hand and et cetera. So I play music on the piano or on the organ. The organ is ridiculous trying to balance on it because you're trying to control your feet and stuff like that. The piano is probably the best thing. It's hard to fall off of a piano unless you're laying on it to sing, and I guarantee you I am not doing that. But it's given me an amazing connection to my music again because I can't do the fancy stuff I used to do. Now I'm just seeing it as life-giving. Because when I use my hands like that, it makes doing the dishes better. Some of you are like, doing the dishes? Yeah, it's my gift of service. I do dishes every night. I am not great at it. Rachel will occasionally tell me that I've missed spots and things like that. Hey, that's what happens. You're a human being. But those kind of things continue that kind of rehab. Every chance you can use, everything you can do. If you love it, it's even better because then you're more likely to do it, right? I know we tell students before they do big papers, make sure you really like what you're studying because if you don't, you're going to lose interest eventually. And you're going to stop the paper and it's going to be an issue for your grade. I teach music history. I say it's because I'm the only one old enough to remember the history. When I said to Johann Sebastian Bach, Bach, it'll be a great idea. You should take up the organ. He said, okay, I shall do that. It's not true. I'm the one that loves music history, and so they let me do it. And within that, I've had a chance to discover all kinds of amazing new things because technology keeps changing. Y'all remember COVID, right? It's in our rearview mirror. Let's just say it's in our rearview mirror. We went to Zoom teaching at LBC during COVID so that we could still see each other because that's important and hear each other but not have to breathe each other's germs. Well, I'll tell you what, that allowed me to do so many things creatively that it felt like I was up on the organ again playing stuff. Instead, I was just being creative in a new technological way and discovering new available things. Folks, when I went to college, the dinosaurs had just left the earth, and it was scary to be outside heading to the library. But now, I tell my students, 2024 is amazing. You can review these books in your PJs from your room and not be embarrassed, and there's no more dinosaurs to be scared of, much less the one in front of your classroom teaching. Indeed, it's truly amazing. I'm sure you have a lot of the technologies here to deal with, and just find such joy in bringing that to students in 2024. It has enlivened my interest and my love of it, as well as my love for the students. So I find great joy in that. It's not the same music making I used to do. It's what I'm doing now. And that's what the joy is. If you were to sit still and say, I can't go forward, there's nothing to go forward with, I guarantee you're missing something. Surround yourself with wise people who know you, who can see you from a 360-degree view to say, hey, you could still do this. This would be even better. This might even be therapeutic. But don't tell anybody that. They'll want to send you to insurance or something. What else am I missing, sweetheart?
I can talk for a few minutes too. You can keep talking too. But I think when we had been dating, we dated before and all, and this is all prior to the stroke, and I made this list and prayed this prayer. Like he said, I was challenged to pray that let me back up. When we broke up from dating, I was really sad. I really, really was invested in the relationship, but I also recognized that it wasn't healthy for us to continue forward at that time. And making this list, a lot of the things on that list were things like I really wanted to see, and I knew for myself too that he was pursuing the Lord first, and I didn't see that evidence. And so when my counselor said, when he comes to mind, which if you went through a breakup, it can just cloud your whole thinking when all of a sudden that person comes to mind. But to pray that the Lord would give him an abundant life, the first when she said that, I was like, what? How could I pray that? How could I pray that God would give someone who hurt me an abundant life? But that prayer really changed my life, and I think prepared me for when the Lord did change his life, which I didn't know was going to happen. And when I was asking the Lord to make his life abundant, I had to very purposefully say, whether that's with me or not, whether it includes me or whether it doesn't, I want the Lord to work in his life. And that changed my heart in many ways and helped me grow. So then, I'll give my perspective, because I wasn't in his life when the stroke happened so much. I guess we could say we were friends, but we weren't really communicating. So the day that he had the stroke, a friend of mine called and said, I just want you to know that Tim has had a stroke. And I was like, okay, this is a big deal, but now what do I do with this? Because we weren't really we weren't really communicating and all, but his parents had stayed in touch with me, which kind of annoyed me, to be honest. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, so we didn't have any communication. We had broken up from dating, and I'd said I have to move on with my life. But I bought a house, and his mom made me a quilt, which was lovely, but it reminded me of him, right? And I was like, oh, what do I do with this quilt? It's beautiful. But I think they knew somehow, and God knew, God had it all put together. Now that quilt is on Karis's bed. But when they called, I said, I'll go to the hospital to be there for his parents, to support them, because I'd still had a relationship with them. And they had, backstory, they had lost 2 children before Tim was born. And so when I walked in the hospital, his mom's first words were, this wasn't supposed to happen again. I wasn't supposed to lose another child. And that night was sorry, I make you cry. That night was pretty dire. We didn't know if he'd make it through the night. It was a massive stroke. It was massive. But we knew in the next couple days, he doesn't remember all of this, but we would be talking, or I would be talking to someone, and all of a sudden he would chime into the conversation appropriately, and we're like, okay, his cognition hasn't been affected, and that was a real blessing, because strokes can have so many effects, and while his physical ability to do things was very affected, his cognition was not, and that was a real blessing. But again, was this an abundant life? Was losing your left side and losing your ability to play in what God would say is an abundant life. But trusting the Lord, for me, it was trusting the Lord in his life and then seeing all the things that I had written down. Like he said, he had no idea. God changed every one of them. And it was actually a friend of mine wanted to set me up on a blind date. And all of a sudden I was like, wait, I don't know that I can go on a blind date, because I realized my heart was starting to get back involved, even though he had had a stroke and he was still in recovery and all of that. And it's just, we say our story is a story that only God could write. Because you couldn't, if somebody set out, this is not the story they would have chosen, but it's a story that God is writing. We don't say has written, is writing, because he's continuing to use, it's not just the stroke, it can be all different things in our lives to change us, to make us more like him. And the gift of our daughter is also, having a child is a joy and also a challenge. You see yourself, your selfishness, right? When you become a mom, I don't know, all of a sudden it's like, wow, I've lived my life for myself so much, and now I have a daughter, and it's a joy. It's a joy, and we love her. Do you want to talk about ways that you help Daddy? What are some things that you do to help Daddy? Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Karis.
And how old are you, Karis?
7.
7. And what grade are you going into?
Second.
Second grade. And what are some things you do that help Daddy?
I help dry the dishes.
She helps dry the dishes. What else do you do? What about if you hear something like clatter?
I go to see if Daddy dropped his stick.
Which 9 times out of 10 is correct.
So he doesn't use a scooter at home, he uses this walking stick, but it falls and it makes a loud noise. And as soon as that noise happens, she goes, and she runs to wherever Daddy is to see if Daddy dropped his stick, so that she can help him, right? Yeah. Anything else you want to say? No? Okay. Thank you.
So folks, I feel like we should point out that while the relationship we're talking about here is a marital one, any relationship with someone you love stands the same chance of disappointment and success. To have it change things for an abundant life. If there's someone in your family or just somebody you've cared for years, it has the same effect on you emotionally, I believe, as well. So yeah, so not to feel left out by our marital relationship. I know that's only true for so many people, and yeah, definitely find the joy in those relationships.
I think that what we could say, and yet, okay, I'll say this, but I don't know if I always live it. Sometimes those changes, those unexpected things, those painful things are what God uses to bring abundance. But sometimes in the moment of it, it doesn't feel that way. And it's recognizing and believing that what God says is true, that He is working all things for our good and His glory. And we don't always understand that, but we can trust Him in that, and that there are times He gives us glimpses of what that looks like. And hopefully that will be fully, not hopefully, that will be fully restored when we go to meet Him. So when He comes back.
Folks, I want to make sure that we're not the only ones doing talking. We're both teachers, so we're used to talking over everybody all day long. That's no good. Rachel teaches the music education courses at LBC, and now she'll be the department chair of the music department, and therefore will be my boss both at home and at school. We are learning that curve. Do you have any questions for us? Is there anything we can help you think through or talk through? I know that we're the only thing standing between you and chicken croquettes. And mash.
For dinner?
No, I don't. I'm making it up. I hope they can change the menu. Who's in favor of chicken croquettes and mashed potatoes? Yes, Oregon Dairy.
I think Mary Lee has a microphone. Does anyone have any questions about our experience? Or up
there you are,
here.
Mary Lee. Right up here.
Oh.
I was wondering, with your music, if you have, perhaps you did it in the past perhaps you've started it now, perhaps you haven't, and that is the gifting of composing and arranging, as well as playing and performing.
Sure, I'll tell you what, my gifts of composing are I'm sorry, they're not world class, that's for sure, but they are usable. They're pragmatic, if you will. I used to improvise a lot, and that would be making music up on the spot. Usually because as a church organist, I didn't know what was coming at me until it happened. Oh, the children are doing this. Oh, the pastor's going to go there. Oh, the choir wants, yeah. So for 30 seconds, I need to play something that gets them from sad to happy, or from happy to sad. I don't know. So that was a lot of fun because I would improvise off of the music I knew, which was Bach or whatever. And therefore I was composing, but in a purely of the moment, pragmatic way. And yeah, I'll tell you what, it's really hard for me to see the music and know what my hand is doing. So I end up improvising a lot now. That keeps the hand moving along with this hand. And yet I don't have to read the music to do it. Praise God. There are people that are paralyzed with the idea of having to make up music, even when nobody's judging them. You got to move past it, yeah. Thank you.
Some of my favorite, we have like little videos. It doesn't happen quite so much anymore, but when Karis was smaller, Tim would practice. He practices the piano as a form of therapy on a regular basis, and often will do a kind of a pattern with his left hand, but then his right hand kind of improvises a little melody or something, and she will dance around the living room to what Daddy's playing, and that's fun. And so then that's a challenge for him to change the style up and see how she like.
Got to slow her down or speed her up, or make her jump or make her sit down, just by what the music does.
We need to do more of that. We haven't done that for a little while.
That, having a music educator in the household is all part and parcel of it. And an intuitive little girl, yeah, indeed. I imagine for some of you that would be called making lemonade when God hands you lemons. I don't know if anybody drinks lemonade anymore, but indeed. Thanks. Any other questions?
So not any formal composition, but yeah.
Although the day may be coming, because there are no hymn arrangements for what my abilities say I can do. And I wonder if I'm not the only one out there that would benefit from something like that.
One neat thing that he's found is there are some right hand only piano pieces. So he's found some of those and
I wondered if he had actually
I might need to.
Yeah, there you go.
when I can stop preparing my lectures, maybe I'll take a moment to do that kind of thing. Indeed.
Yeah. Are there other questions?
Cool.
What question? No? You just want to listen.
Oh, sure.
He just wants to know that he's gone through adversity like you, because he has a stroke, but he can listen to you. He knows what you're saying.
Right.
He just can't tell you.
Right. And isn't that so fascinating how God has made our bodies, how different parts of our brains are affected? And right. I know of another man whose physical body looks fine, and you wouldn't have known that he had a stroke, but he can't speak either. Yeah. Yeah. So
I lived right next to a fella at Bryn Mawr Rehab for the better part of 2 months. He didn't talk to me, and I thought, oh, he's just being standoffish. And then as I left, I found out that his stroke had been a left-sided stroke with the right side effect, and therefore he lost his speech.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So something, I don't know, I'll ask you this question, okay? So I knew a woman when I worked in a retirement community, and she couldn't speak, but she could sing. Have you tried to see? I don't know if you were a singer in the past. No? Okay. But it was amazing because I don't know if she had a stroke or what the reason was, but she couldn't speak. But when you would start playing the piano, play a hymn or something, she could sing the words, which was amazing to me. Again, how God made our brains and
Right.
and the different pathways. So
You see
Yeah.
that in a lot of Alzheimer's treatments too. The singing.
singing,
It's
yes.
deep-seated
So-
to change that.
Yeah.
We had a lady at First Press who could whistle but not speak. I sure wish somebody had told me that before the first time I played a hymn, and she whistled because it's
She
not something you
whistled a lot,
expect,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was glorious, but wow,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
communication,
Yeah.
Thank you.
nice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions out here that you have
No, they're all in
facing-
favor of the chicken croquettes.
facing
man.
changes? No one else has any questions or thoughts on change? Thank you, Rick.
We know that there's going to be more change that comes ahead of us. We still have, hopefully, a lot of life to live. But that means there's going to be trials and challenges and changes. And like I said, it's easier to say we can look and see God's goodness in it when you look back. Sometimes when you're going through it, it doesn't always feel that way. And you have to step back and go, okay, what's God doing here? How are we trusting him in this? So, yeah.
I think that last statement is a great one to remember for all of us, because I think that, I don't know if that the word is hindsight, because that's something different, but same idea. It's once you get further through things and we start to look back at life and all of a sudden recognize what we're in, that's when it sort of hits you in the face. You're like, wow, this is a beautiful moment in my life, and you didn't realize that because you were going through something that was consuming your life at the time. So even with something so big and large as this, of not moving or doing things that you wished you were doing, sometimes life is different and we don't know what the joy is going to be on the other side. So that's what my hope is for everybody that came here today, is to learn. We all know, and of course living here in this community, it's really apparent to everyone, aging well is accepting changes. We just have to. And I think there's so many people, when I look in the other world, when I live off the campus, people don't talk that way. They're like dreading the future. That just blows my mind. I don't ever want to be older. I'm like, how could you say that? You would hope to be older. And if you do it the right way of living through all the steps of life, it is a much easier path to live than trying to stay away from it and not growing as much as you should, even as a young person. So you should be young and growing to be old, and that's to be the joy. But also, no, we do have things. But thank God you are here, I say, because there's so many ways to help you through them. And I think that's the key. You were very fortunate, Tim, to have a girlfriend that stuck with you. And that's huge in life. And it's for both of you. So it brought you this beautiful little girl, and that's going to be huge in your whole lives, you know. And I can see that for sure with that little smile. So life is interesting, and it just grows. So I'm so glad you're all here. And remember, when things happen, reach out to anyone and everyone that's around you, because you don't know who is being placed in your path to help you. And prayer is one of our number one things to remember to do in life. So that will conclude us, I believe, and I thank you so much for coming, Tim and Rachel. And I can never remember this unique name. Karis with a K, and I have a Kara with a K, and I always say that, my daughter, and I always say Kara with a K, so Karis. There. So thank you very much for coming today, and enjoy your afternoon as we go forward, and think of all the joys that you've had, even if you have a little arthritis and all those other things. We can say we're here, and that's what counts. So thank you for coming.